and hopefully everybody can see them for now. So as I mentioned, my name is Jenny and I'm the promotion of Kooth with professionals in schools and any of those services and agencies that are working with children and young people in our age group. We work in the East Berkshire area from young people aged 11 up to their if you need that information again, I can send it out to you afterwards, but it covers the majority, I think, of children and young people in the area. So today is really about understanding Kooth and all of like the features of the website. So Kooth essentially is free online counselling support for young people, but there's a lot more to discover about Kooth, and I hope to bring in a lot more of the features. We all kind of understand what the counselling might be, but I will say that it's not a video and a voice counselling service, it's a text service. So they have a live text with the online counsellor, or they can send messaging to the counsellors, which are similar to an email. But there are a lot of other features and tools that we use on the website. And also to know that even if a young person feels like they're not, they don't have an interest in talking to someone, a counsellor, or getting advice, that they can still use all of the other features on the website. So there's a lot more of the community features and a lot more of peer-to-peer. And hopefully I'll go into that a little bit more detail and you can understand what I mean about those features. Just going back a little bit to Kooth, it was set up back in 2001 to address the stigma around mental health. And so there's an anonymity factor attached to Kooth, and this really supports those hard to reach young people and those people who maybe are not as comfortable talking about their emotions or their mental health or anything that they might have attached shame or embarrassment to it. So this really supports young people on a range of different issues and can be very beneficial around that early intervention and prevention. So getting young people to identify when there's an issue going on for them as soon as possible, accessing support as soon as possible, and any other services that they need, because we know in the long run this is better for them. And Kooth really works as a gateway to other services. So this isn't about containing any young people, but it's about how we can work alongside all of the other plans and interventions that are in place with all these other services around mental health and well-being, including within the schools and what they're supporting young people around their mental health and well-being. We're commissioned in over half of all local authorities across England, Wales, and we're active in Scotland. This is growing continuously. And since the 1st of May to 2019 to 2020, we had over 1 million logins, and these came from over 153,000, almost 154,000 unique young people. And this is growing every day as well, because new young people are signing up all of the time. Because of this, then we get a lot of data, and I have a couple of slides to show you shortly about the data. I wanted to draw attention a little bit more about how I could support you with the resources that I have in your social care roles, and also prompt some of the ideas that I've gotten around how best you can promote Kooth. So there are Kooth webinars that could be done for foster carers and virtual school teams, especially right now where the virtual offers are quite popular when face-to-face are on hold. You could add Kooth information to your organisational newsletters. You can add Kooth info to Children Leaving Care website, the local offer. You can add Kooth info to an organisational website where they might be adding more like banners, e-posters. I have video links and hyperlinks to Kooth.com. So these are quite interactive, but that can go up there and can be a bit more interesting in terms of creating awareness. There's a lot of different social media campaigns you can do locally. And I can do a session for children and care councils to champion Kooth to peers. and signposting as part of your emotional well-being, mental health support work, and setting up Kooth champions amongst staff and young people to promote Kooth. So this could be someone who just has a lot of the information, the posters, and continuously checks in that the information is being disseminated out, because this is available for all young people in that area. So the more people that are speaking about it and letting them know, the more young people can become aware of it and the service. So these next two slides are just to highlight that at Kooth and Zen Zone, we do quite a lot of research, and we are tracking in the last couple of weeks the impact of COVID-19 on young people and the differences that we're seeing. So as I mentioned, how many logins that we're getting and how many unique young people are using the site. It's a real opportunity to gather quite a big snapshot of the national issues across the country. And we're seeing that, you know, issues around, and that won't be surprising to many of you, but highlighting issues with sleep that, you know, maybe not come up as much as child abuse and issues of loneliness in lockdown, but young people are having a lot of issues with sleep right now, and it's up 140% since last year, and similar issues around eating and restrictive eating. And I know a lot of young people struggled when they saw people finding it really difficult to get food and, you know, feel guilty about eating, and it brought up quite a lot for them. In terms of young people on the spectrum and having additional needs, up since last year 133%. So we're seeing more young people with additional needs accessing our services and looking for support around that. And so because of this increase, that allows us then to start looking at creating new content and new ways of engaging young people with additional needs. So that's just a very quick snapshot of our data release. So the key messages that we hope you're able to deliver out to young people, or when you are creating awareness, is that young people can access the service for free. So it's no cost to them. It's not an app, so they don't have to download anything. It is a website, so they can just go to kooth.com. They don't need a referral, so you're really just about creating awareness. So this isn't referring a young person, and this can be quite empowering. And I know from my years of working with children that were at risk in care, or those in care, they really had an issue sometimes about referral and being referred and told to do things. So it's quite nice to raise awareness and maybe say that it's their choice, that you're just, you know, letting them know that it's there. And it's up to them to engage when they want. And it's not that they have to talk to a counsellor, but they can look at all of the other features of the website and talk to other young people. Anonymity is really important. Again, as I mentioned, I worked a lot with young people at risk of entering care and in the care system, and with their social workers. So my part of my role was to help build relationships and understand what the social worker was trying to do for the young person. And I would have loved if there was something with this anonymity for young people at the time, because there are some of those things that they feel scared to talk about, because they feel like you're going to do something with it, you're going to refer on, it's going to be made into a bigger thing for them. So being anonymous, it creates a pause, I think, for young people, a pause where they can kind of say everything that's going on to them. They know nothing's going to happen, and then they have to give details after that. Or if they just have things that are embarrassing to talk about, if it's their first time raising an issue as well. We have many young people who are coming out as disclosing their issues around sexuality, around gender, and other different things that they have not mentioned to friends or family. So Kooth has been the first place they're talking about it. So this has really helped break down barriers. Everything is pre-moderated, and I'm going to mention that quite a lot as I go through about the pre-moderation. So this, even though there's a social aspect to the website, online moderators look at all things before they're posted, and this is to keep young people safe, that there's no details being shared. Nobody can come on and ask them for their personal details. They can't troll them, they can't say nasty things, and then they can't put things on that are really inappropriate and not appropriate for the age group of the young people coming on. So what are young people talking about on the site? It's not just all about those high-risk issues. So we do have young people that are waiting a CAMHS referral or have come from CAMHS, and it's a step back to them. But we also have young people in that early intervention phase where they're just talking about relationships, family, friends, school, identity, loneliness, all of those issues that are going on for them. So we cover quite a large range. So we do say that Kooth is a place to help with anything, and if it's bothering you, it's worth talking about. So we don't have thresholds and we don't have criteria in this way. And so sometimes young people come on and they only need one chat. They just need one piece of advice for something that's happening right now. That piece of advice has really helped them, or the venting or the validation of their feelings has helped, and they may not need to come back. Those that do need counselling, they will be offered this as part of the chats, and that's discussed along with the young person in terms of looking at their needs. The service is open 365 days a year, so they can speak to a counsellor even on Christmas Day, New Year's Day, those holidays. The hours are Monday to Friday from 12 until 10 p.m. and from 6 to 10 at the weekend. So we do offer out of hours kind of cover. The website itself is available 24/7, so they don't. These are only the hours for speaking live to a counsellor. Outside of that, they can use all of the other features in the activity hub and the forums to express and support each other. Helping a young person to sign up to Kooth is really simple. They can access on any device that has access to the internet, so they can log on to a mobile phone, a laptop, a tablet. There's only 8 steps and it takes under 2 minutes to sign up. So the key details are really the location that they're in. If you're supporting a young person and they're living out of area, but you're within this East Berkshire area, in around Bracknell, Slough, Windsor, Maidenhead, if you're working in those areas and you have a young person outside it, they can still sign up under this area. And you just let them know that when they're signing up, and they have access to then no matter where they move to, and that can be really good in terms of continuity and linking in with support in that way. They just identify as their gender, and this just helps with us understanding young people logging on. And for support, their ethnicity, the year and month of their birth, and this helps with us filtering out the content. So what an 11, 12, 13-year-old sees on the website is not the same as what a 15, 16, an older young person sees. So we use this age to filter that out so that it's age appropriate and at their developmental stage. You're going to help them create or tell them about that they will need to create an anonymous username. Anonymous meaning that it's not their social media name and it's not a name that their friends and family would already know. And then we ask them, where did they hear about Kooth? And this information goes also back to the commissioners, just to let them know about the different areas where young people are hearing about it. So the number one area is usually schools and friends, and then after that it might be CAMS worker, a social worker, a care worker, so they will identify underneath there. In terms of giving advice to young people and their account, if you can, one good piece of advice around their username is to make it random, but make it easier to remember. So not having something that sounds like a real name or something with too many, special characters. So even if it's just something they like, I like T23, like very, very simple things, or a band name or something that they like, or a book. It is quite easy, and it can be connected to an identity that they want to create for their online platform. Similar with the passwords, keeping it very unique, but also very easy to remember. We don't have their email addresses, so if they forget their username and password, we can't send it to them at the moment. Now, we are looking at other options of how we can do that in the future to make it easier. And we are able to sometimes link accounts if a young person has forgotten and they come in and they tell us, and we know some information from their account. But other than that, just trying to keep it unique and simple and easy to remember. But most young people are pretty okay with this, and they haven't had any issues. So coming in a little bit more to the Kooth community and the peer support aspect of it. Young people can get involved in a community when they come to Kooth. So we have the magazine, we have live forums, and we have an activity hub for young people. And so these are all areas where they're free to and encouraged to express themselves and to provide peer support to other young people. We're doing quite a large piece of research at the moment on peer support and peer support online, and hopefully this will be published at some point next year. It's being evaluated by another university, and so we're putting a lot more effort in the next couple of months to building aspects of peer support and encouraging that with young people, because we know that young people, when they hear their experiences validated from other young people, when they hear that they're not alone and that other young people are experiencing the same things and they're not judged, this can be really profound for them. It can do a lot for their self-confidence and their self-esteem. This is one quote from a young person saying, "I really like how you can share your problems anonymously and have help from others. It makes me feel accepted and that people will not judge me." So that's a sample of what one of the young people on our site has said about being anonymous on the site. So the Kooth magazine is where we co-create with young people. So the online team are creating articles around mental health, well-being, activities such as mindfulness, yoga, dealing with anxiety, dealing with stress, dealing with relationships, all of these issues that come up around mental health and well-being and the issues that young people are presenting with. We use this to design out the content. Alongside that, we really encourage young people to contribute to the magazine. They're seen as equally valid in their experiences, and quite a lot of young people are very creative and they write a lot of poetry about their experiences. And this can be a really incredible way for them to get their voice out there, especially for young people who don't feel heard and validated in every day. And other young people can comment on their posts and they can comment on other posts. Again, this is pre-moderated, so they're free to comment. We don't try to overly censor, but they are moderated before they go live. That just means that it's checked and we can be sure that there's no comments up there that are going to be inappropriate or any comments that aren't nice for a young person to receive. Also, when I mentioned like not everybody wants to use counselling, quite a lot of young people come on and share their stories on the magazine, and this is their way of sort of seeking help and support. So they might write something in the magazine that concerns us, or it sounds like they could really do with speaking to a counsellor, and we've seen that they've not yet spoken to a counsellor. So we can send that young person a message, you know, we really liked your magazine, it sounds article, it sounds like you could do with some support. Would you like to come and talk to us? So we use that as a gateway of engaging with young people through the content they're creating. And this is very similar to the forums, and the forums in the magazine are very popular on the website, and we continuously give feedback back to the commissioners about what young people are reading online, how much they're using it, and a huge amount are accessing both those services. The forums themselves are like those discussion boards you see on social media. Again, we have the online team, so 3 times a week. They will have a live forum. Now, the live forum means that in between on the evening between 7:30 and 9, when it's on, that all the online team are there, and so the comments coming in are moderated in live real time. So it's a very quick and very dynamic conversation. Outside of that, the forum discussions are a bit more static, but we do have a lot of users, so they can go through a lot of different posts and they can start commenting on a lot of different posts from young people, and they will see other young people commenting on theirs. It's a real way to give support to others and also vent about situations or just brainstorm about things going on. So right now, you know, during the lockdown, some young people just asked about what movies are you watching? How are you dealing with the lockdown? How are you dealing with like not seeing your friends? And then all give each other advice on that. And it's been very supportive. There are some threads in there from young people who are in care systems, just talk about their experiences and their advice and their stories, and they do similar on the magazines as well, which can be really supportive anonymous network for young people in care. Just going a little bit more to the evidence-based part of our website. So we do a lot of research, as I mentioned, and this all goes into our theory of change, looking at interventions and our assessment tools and our evaluation tools, because we are outcomes focused. We do want to support young people to make changes to their mental health and well-being and create very much a safe space where they can chat. And we want to make sure that what we're doing is working. So we do quite a lot of the research on this, and there's a whole department on it. We develop quite a lot of resources for young people and psychoeducation materials that are easy to understand. The language is in quite an informal and accessible way for young people. We do link them to other external sites as well if we know that something is safe and appropriate for a young person to use. We have a lot of different worksheets that young people can use. So there's an example on there that's very standard type of CBT worksheet, but we have these types of resources that we can send. So in between speaking to a counsellor, or even if they're not ready to speak to a counsellor, they can have these types of resources to work on and then come back and speak to one of us about it. There's a huge resource database available to all of the online practitioners that they can easily access and send to young people. The core, we use CORE, so the Clinical Outcomes Routine Evaluation questionnaire for young people on those first assessment chats. So this is so we can gauge the risk level of the young person and also the needs. And it also helps us to have those conversations with young people about what's going on for them. And we can use this to evaluate over time if the risk factors are going down for a young person, if their protective factors are increasing. We'll look at their CORE score as one of those ways of assessing where that young person is at. This is on the screen a snapshot of the desktop from the practitioner's point of view. So you can see that there are, things around case notes, the questionnaires that we send out, the journals of the young person, the entries they've made, their goals, their presenting issues. So we have quite a lot of information when you're in a chat with a young person, and we can access that and even their older case notes if something comes up while we're in a chat. So it's very comprehensive. Clinical outcomes goal setting. So our COGS are a way of also setting up goals with young persons. So they can, within a chat, the practitioner can set a goal with the young person, but they also from their own desktop can set up goals. And this is an extension of the assessment process. And it also helps us measure motivation levels with young person. And we try to support them to understand how to set goals for themselves. So this can become a life skill for a young person, and also keeping things very simple. And so they can understand that small actions can have long-term impact for them. Sometimes young people will put a goal for themselves like to be happy. And so we moderate their goals for them, and we might make it, I will do one thing every day that makes me happy, because this is a lot more achievable. It's a lot more realistic. And a young person has the opportunity at least once every day to click in and say that they've done one thing that makes them happy, regardless of everything else that happened for the day. And that can be a really good learning opportunity for a young person in terms of gaining perspective and learning to focus on not just the bad things that are happening, but finding and searching those good things. The case management is very comprehensive, and we work as part of a multidisciplinary team, and it's quite an open access to the case notes across the teams working with young people. We record the duration and the number of sessions that young people have had, their presenting issues, and any new issues arising in those chats, anything that might change their risk level, new protective factors. So if they started engaging with other services along the ways, or they started talking to their family or their friends about things, this would increase their protective factors. Any of the interventions used in the psychoeducational materials, next steps and signposting. Again, you can see up here our RAG system. So we have green, amber, and red. So green is, maybe a lower risk young person, but they still might have some risk. Amber and red is where if there's less protective factors and there's more risk for that young person. So we keep a closer eye, and we might send some more welfare messages and check in a lot more with this young person. It also helps if they're popping up in the queue and they don't have a named counsellor to see, that we can kind of prioritize, how we can engage with that young person. We do take anything to do with safeguarding and take notes on this, and any of the agencies they're working with. So if they already have a counsellor or they're already in CAMS, we're not going to duplicate that work, because it would be inappropriate for a young person to have 2 counselling sessions. So what that means is if they're already engaging with another service, maybe we offer a support service to that in helping them understand or letting them talk about maybe other issues that aren't brought up in those other sessions, but might be minor, but still really important for that young person. So we work in that way to be more collaborative. And we take anything around a safety plan for a young person. So if a young person has issues around suicidal ideation or a lot of self-harm, we'll create a safety plan with that young person. We can always refer back to that, like who did they call, what did they do, how they identify their own signs, any distraction techniques. So these are all reminders and prompts. So regardless of whether they're in their chat with their named worker or not, somebody also always has that plan that's very specific to that young person to access and to remind them of. Signposting is a really important part of Kooth. As I mentioned, we don't want to just hold young people, but create, as part of a larger care plan, awareness of those other services that are in their communities. So even if this is about looking at their local amenities, if they feel like they don't have friends in school and they feel quite lonely, it could be understanding what clubs and art clubs, drama clubs, sports that they could join as a way of meeting new people and developing hobbies and interests. And this is part of building their protective factors. We do list all the other sports and face-to-face services and especially right now with the changes to face-to-face services during COVID-19 and the lockdown. We got an updated list of everything that was happening in that East Berkshire area, and this went on to our XCP system. So anybody working with a young person from that area, they'll be able to see what changes to the services that are available for young people right now, and so they can signpost young people to this new updated information. So the pathways are a really important part to us, and if there's any service or new services that you are available and you thought that you know are available in the area, you could email me and let me know about it, and I could put it up onto the site for other young people in the area. Session feedback is really important to us. We like to know how young people felt at the end of the session, and if they weren't so happy or they didn't get to talk about something, we would check back in with them afterwards to make sure there was nothing left unsaid. And we just keep an eye on this for young people, and also helps us guide our practice and the online way of working. A very kind of comprehensive case example. I'm going to combine a few different cases, but usually young people are coming with presenting issues to Kooth. It might be issues around relating to their family, feeling unsupported or disconnected. They might have issues of just feeling anxious, stressed, or they might have started self-harming or other maladaptive coping mechanisms, maybe some substance misuse or disordered eating, whether it's binge eating or restricting food. And having low self-esteem, and at this stage they may not want to tell anybody else about it. They don't want to engage with GPs or face-to-face services, tell a teacher or parents. So coming to Kooth, what they can get or receive is a full assessment of their needs and risks. Protective factors are identified for that young person, and they're encouraged to develop them, and they will have a care plan and possibly a named worker or a key worker allocated to them so that they can have the same worker over time. We will look at the interventions to address the presenting issues and how we can support them. And so in the chat, we might use CBT, brief interventions, ACT, just depending on what's needed for the young person. Maybe it's some creative methods and expressive therapies. Psychoeducation materials will be sent to the young person. They'll get to use the online journal and set goals for them. And so what we see after a young person receives that type of intervention is that there's improvements in their mood and in their self-esteem, and they'll self-report that there's a reduction in their maladaptive coping mechanisms. So they may have reduced and stopped their self-harming or stopped any substance misuse and managed a little bit more their emotions. They might have started to engage with the GP or other services that they need, and they'll have an increased awareness of those positive coping mechanisms. So they'll have built up a toolbox of the things you can do when you feel that things are overwhelming for you. So just almost at the end of the presentation, to recap a little bit the message. So Kooth is free for young people, it's safe and it's anonymous. We are a BACP accredited service, so all of our counsellors are trained and qualified. Everything is pre-moderated and confidential, so they're not going to have any nasty experiences of doing something online. And also they can be assured that it's confidential, so it's not about sharing their information. If they do need to talk to other services and face-to-face services, we will support them and link them in and help them access those services, as well as talking to us online. So our message is everybody needs support sometimes, and if you do, Kooth is here. So I am going to stop my sharing and come back to you just for a minute. I didn't see too much active in the chat. So just before I go online to show you the website from the young person's perspective, I'll just open it a little bit to see if anybody has any questions. And also, Taylor, if there was anything I left out, because I know it's quite a lot of information, but sometimes there's small things or key points that you might have noticed I didn't mention.
No, very thorough. Just bear in mind when we go on to the live tour that it is age appropriate. So the signing that we'll be using is of a certain age. So if you see something on there and you might be dealing with maybe a younger audience, just bear in mind that that younger audience would not see that. This is simply just so you are aware of everything on there. Someone has just said, I lost sound at the start. Can you confirm the age range for this contract?
Yes, it's from 11 up to their 20th birthday, and then there's an extended pathway for those young people who have additional social emotional needs, or if they've left care, so they can access up to 25. And what is done if a young person discloses abuse? So we have a very similar service that you would get in a face-to-face service about disclosures around abuse. So we would work with that young person to, help them understand why we might want details. And we would ask for details if they wanted us to make a referral on their behalf, or if they wanted us to make child protection a case for them and put that forward to their local agency. Now, this is up to the young person, so we would work with them around understanding that they do need to speak to somebody else, that they can give us details, but if they're not going to give us details, we give them a list of those agencies and those people that they can speak to. So that's what I mean about having the list of services that are there, so we can give them the contact information. Quite often it might help them identify who a trusted teacher is, or a trusted adult if they're involved in other youth activities where they're already known to that person. So identifying who that person is and helping them and feeling confident about disclosing that for the young person. So this does happen, and it is a piece of work around working with that young person. Also, do you filter children and young people with additional needs to match the right level of content? So this is continuously being improved. And as I said at the start with the research, we can see more and more young people with additional needs accessing the service. There are content for them on there, but it's not as specifically filtered because at the moment we don't have a way of signing in at the start to say that they have additional needs. So we would encourage young people, if you're working with someone with additional needs, to flag that to one of the team when they first come on, and we can put that on their case note, and then we can send them directly the content that's more relevant to them. But they will find it on there through searching, and there are other young people in the on the platform with additional needs, and in a way it does kind of, it's not discriminating against young people, and it's having an open space there. But the more we're aware of those needs, the more particular content we can send to those young people for that. But there is a lot of articles around dealing with school relationships if you're already have additional needs, or if you're on the spectrum. So there is specific content in that way, and a lot of the counsellors working online have worked either in schools as a SENCO or in SENS departments and with young people with additional needs.
Any other questions?
I'm just going to pull up then the Kooth website.
So while the online tour is going on, if anyone has any questions, pop them in. I can answer them as we go through.
Just checking, you can see that now, Taylor, Kooth?
I can see that, yeah.
Yep. So this is the Kooth website. So when they come to kooth.com, they still have an option to watch the Kooth video. It's just a 1-minute video that explains Kooth website to them, and I can send this out to people as well if you wanted to send in advance to a young person you're working with, so they can look at it. They can join Kooth, or else they can log in if they have their account already created. They do have access to crisis service numbers through here if they were in crisis and we were in we weren't online at the moment, and those crisis numbers are available at different points on the website. So I'm logging my test account. So each time a young person logs in, this is their first landing page. So this is their journal where they can just it's very visual and it's very simple. So they can choose an emoji and they can put a reason in for this. And if they're working with a counsellor, the counsellor will be able to check in on their journal each time for them. And if they pop up in the chat queue, we'll be able to pop into their case and look at their journal. So if they're especially angry or upset about something, and they were high-risk young people, we could intervene while they were in that chat queue and send messages of support to the young person. We have a new activity hub. There's 18 mini activities on here, and they're very much step by step. So this is also very suitable for those young people with additional needs, because how to do all of these activities, they're all under 5 steps. Most have 4 steps. So it outlines what you do in step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these are how you set up a self-care box, how you might draw a song, how you can write a letter to express yourself. So there's all these type of therapeutic activities aimed at supporting young people to manage their emotions and to express themselves. So they're very simple and very easy to use on there, and they're very age appropriate for all young people. And they'll get some of the articles that they're interested, the new articles coming up. They'll see their goals, any goals that they have set, so they can increase their score if they've done something on that day, and anything they've completed, there'll be a 10 there. If they wanted to have a chat, they could have a chat straight from here. But the rest is just a lot of articles. Because I've logged in and this is a test account, you won't see the questionnaires, but usually along here, there's new questionnaires for young people. And on their first day of signing up, they do a measurement of needs questionnaire, which is very similar to the core, so that we can assess risk, whether or not they come into a chat. Even if they're just using our website, we understand where their risk level is at. If they were high risk young person, then on their first sign up, we would send them a message encouraging them to chat, and we would send resources that based on some of those questions that came up in the chat. At the top, there's 3 icons, so it's very simple to navigate around. So the first is a magazine, so I can click in here. So this is all the new content and all the new magazine content that comes up, and you can see comments underneath each of the articles. But if they wanted to search for something particular, they could go into categories, and they can go in and see a list of categories, and under each category as well, there's all of different things. So like if they were living in care or they were young carer at the moment, they could see the articles that are relevant for them. If they like anything in particular, they can favorite it, and this becomes like their own toolbox. And any articles they're sent from the online team, they can favorite, and they can have just a collection of things that might be really valuable for them. So if they're really interested in creative writing, they can get a link to all the challenges and creative writing challenges we have on. Some young people about loneliness right now is a big issue. So these are mine that I've favoured at the moment, just as an issue. We had some young person speaking about being in a care facility under lockdown, and young people talking about adoption and their experiences. You can see that there's 31 new comments about that. So it's very relevant for young people to discuss that. If they want to contribute, they just contribute, and they can just put their post in there. The guidelines are here, but it's very simple and it's very easy. They can just vent in here and write that into the team. Similar with the discussion boards, you can see this one is very live, the passing the mic at the moment. And under each of the different topics, there'll be young people commenting at different points. There's a range of different things that happen on here, and the live forums will happen on here as well, but they'll be announced to the young person for it. Even some young person asking, am I on the spectrum? So there will be no doubt a lot of different discussions happening on there, because young people do start to look at things online. And a lot of times young people come on and they'll read online quizzes, online symptoms and things, and they come to check it out in the counselling. I've read this and I want to know, is this true for me? So they'll start those types of discussions. So they can start a discussion about anything. They can post it here. It will be moderated, and we can approve it then, and other young people can start commenting. A good tip for young people is to follow their own posts, so that they can keep them in one area, and then they can see the comments as they come up. So this is an example of the coping box activity. So I was in that, I've done it, and now I'm in a little group discussion with other young people who've made their own coping box, and I can see the kind of things they've put in their coping box, and I can get ideas about what's helping them, and also I can share what's helping me, and that might help another young person. We get the weekly roundup of things that have happened online for the week, and young people are commenting on that. And as I said, pass the mic, there's quite a lot of happening on that at the moment. So that's around the Black Lives Matter campaign, and young people having their say about, you know, the different playlists that we put up on Spotify each Monday. So they're contributing to that now and giving ideas for songs that are really important, that are celebrating Black artists for this month. So quite a lot of young people want to kind of give, the artists that they really like, and this will go onto our online Spotify then, and they may have contributed to that playlist. So it's really being part of a community in that way, and seeing and sharing, music with other young people. Over here then is our personal section, so they can go straight into their mini activities from here, and they can go into their goals. So if they want to add a new goal, they can click add a new goal and they can write it in there, or they can do something about increasing and decreasing their score. Their practitioner will see this, so they can check in and notice if they haven't done anything for a moment. They can maybe help them again get that motivation back. They can click into their journal and they can see all of their past. Now this is a test account, so I haven't put quite a lot in here, but you can see that young people can look at over time, like the different feelings and what was happening on the day. So happy because they met their friends, but then fighting with friends and feeling alone from friends. And this can go back, but they can put paragraphs in here and a lot more. It depends on how comfortable they are, but even a short one-liner sometimes can be really nice in terms of capturing an emotion, and that might be one of their goals. There's a lot of links to other services for around eating disorders, some of the NHS websites for a lot of different issues and supports, maybe around LGBT, gender identity. So they all have a meet the team section where they can meet the team. It does take quite a lot to load up, so and I think it's been adjusted at the moment. So yes, you can see like all the different team members and a little bit of their bio, and this can help young people, especially those young people with additional needs. They really like to search through and maybe find someone who they feel will understand them or has a hobby and interest that they really connect to. Or if they've had a chat with someone that night, maybe they want to look up their bio afterwards and see who they were talking to. And they might really want to connect with that person in that way. Again, the feedback, they can really give a lot of feedback. We use a lot of this to co-create the site. So any of the changes and any of the activities in the design of the website, this is all done alongside our youth panels. So we will always have research alongside young people so that they can give feedback on what's easier, how to access services, because I know it's quite, as adults, we have a certain perspective of what might be good for a young person, but having them involved in that user experience and linking with the design team is really important. So them giving their feedback really helps us how we change the ease of access and the wording that we use and the voice that we have for young people that makes it feel friendlier and accessible. And again, as I mentioned, we're developing a lot more with the SEND group at the moment. And so those young people with additional needs, some of those will be involved in that so that the user experienced designers will understand how better they can facilitate the needs of those young person online. If they want to chat, they can click these two speech bubbles over here. There is orange at the moment, so we'll see that orange means that we're offline. So the counsellors come on from 12. So when after 12 o'clock, this will go to green, but they can message the team in between. So they can send a message to the team and they will get a message back from the team. So this is just an example to show you like what it's like in their message box. So all their messages will show up here and they can message the team here by just sending in anything. Maybe they just want a piece of advice or something happened, or they'd like to be sent some support. So a lot of young people right now are like, I need some support around sleeping. I'm having issues with that. Can you just send me something? Can you give me advice about what I can do during the lockdown? I'm quite bored. So they don't always need to get into that counselling conversation, but they do still want support. And so this can be really helpful. The messaging is also really good for those young people that might not have an hour at home right now in privacy and they don't want to get into a chat, but they still have things that they want to talk about. So they can get into a messaging dialogue with one of the team members. So they'll send it and it mightn't be an instant reply, but they'll still get a reply and they can continue that conversation. Some of those conversations continue over weeks and months. Some young people only want messaging support in that way. It suits them and gives them time to process in between what's happening, and it gives them, if they get questions from their counsellor, they've got a few days to think about what that means for them, because young people find it quite hard in the moment to think about what they're feeling and to check in. And that is the site, the website. It's quite simple and straightforward, I hope, and I will, I've stopped sharing now. And I just want to, check in and see how that was for people, and if there were any other questions or comments, Taylor, or anything else I might have missed on the site.
No questions at the moment. Jenny has said it's a fantastic resource of our children in care, so that's a really good feedback. Jenny, if you need to have a webinar for your team at work, Jenny can sort that out for you as well. Has anyone got any questions that they haven't put in the chat? Amazing.
I had it in a slide at the very start, so just some of the promotional tips to go back over again. So this is about looking at the different ways that you're communicating with people at the moment. So sending it out in their newsletters. Maybe you have organizational newsletters that go out weekly or monthly, or to individuals or to targeted young people. Having it up on your website, so we can have that link to the Kooth promo video that you could put up on your own individual websites. Maybe you can send that out in emails to your team members. I have some images that can be, and e-posters that could be sent out as well and put up on your websites. There could be other team meetings that I can attend, or if you're having team meetings with foster carers or those children in care networking groups, or if you're part of other groups with young people involved in them especially, I could come along and do a virtual offer for that, or a question and answer session. I can show them the online website in that way. So there's really quite a lot of different ways and communications tools that I have, and different ways that I can work with you. So it just depends on what might support you best in getting that message out. While I really appreciate connecting with as many professionals, and schools are a really great place, anybody that has direct contact to young people and sharing the message directly to young people, that would be especially of interest, because the more young people that are made aware, and especially now before the school holidays, because I know the holidays can be quite a difficult time for some young people as well, especially after lockdown, and now they're not going to be seeing other young people at the moment. I'm just reading the comments here at the side about the promotional materials. So I have a lot of different promotional materials and the links, and I can come to any of the groups. I know that in some of the areas as well, I've done just pre-recorded a particular presentation for the young people and sharing that. So that could be useful. And I know for the schools, I've been doing it for the online assemblies as well, creating something that they could just play for 5 minutes. I've sent out some sign-up sheets as well. So if you're working with a young person and you want to email them on the sign-up sheet, just taking them through the steps and some information about what Kooth is, I can design that out specifically that you can just forward straight to the young person so that they have all of that information as well. So do contact me with it. And I do have the email addresses, so I can send a lot of those resources after this with a list and with those links. And if there was anything else after that, you can contact me. If there are no other comments and questions, we can finish. And my email is, just put in there as well. So it's jfennessy@zenzone.com. And that's a really good comment, I think, from Jenny as well, in terms of if you're sending out crisis services and crisis numbers and creating awareness, putting Kooth out there on that in terms of another additional support for young people, and creating that awareness that it's not just about always being in crisis, but, just having somebody to talk to before anything escalates. Okay, well, I know I didn't get to see a lot of the faces and we didn't get to hear a lot of the voices, but I hope to be working with and seeing some of you when everything comes back, maybe to face-to-face services from September, October. I really appreciate you taking the time out, and I hope that you were able to take in a lot of the information about Kooth, and you feel confident in recommending Kooth as a service and support for young people. So thank you for attending, and I think we will finish there.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Susan.